Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN summertime, and the trim is easy. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare that summer bod. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the belt. That's why I trust Manscaped them for all my sensitive areas. Inside this package, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Their 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable, next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. We'd also have dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 length setting combs, and oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too. Beach, lake, or shower, this razor will devour even the strongest pubes. Now that you have the perfect haircut, use Manscaped's liquid formulations to keep that freshness even at the hottest summer BBQs. The Crop Soother Aftershave Lotion and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafe Ball Deodorant. Once they touch your sack, it will never go back. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 5.0. The Manscaped Boxers and a Shed Travel Bag. More what products? Say no more. Manscaped's new Buff Bundle is all you need to keep the summer heat a breeze. This bundle includes their signature silicone scrubber plus body wash. Ditch your nasty loofah and grab a taste of freshness. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. It's smooth sack summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind.
Episode 80 of the Habs Culture podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz, alongside Liam Baum. We were here just a few days ago chatting about our mock draft 3.0. We got some good feedback. I wanted to hear what you guys had to say, your thoughts, your opinions. It will be up on all social media platforms for you guys to, give us your opinions. But today we're going to be chatting a little bit. We're gonna fast forward. We're gonna pretend that we are June. We're gonna pretend that we are at the tail end of June.
July 1st.
Well, tail end of June, right before July 1st, and you're a GM. You're a management squad, and you've got to pick and choose the UFA or even maybe the trade, a trade that makes sense for your team and who you want to acquire. But Liam, I'll let you take the reins because you are the UFA and you are the trade guy. You are the insider here. Give me some of the names that you're intrigued by, maybe a landing spot or two, and let's start this discussion.
Thank you. I am the UFA guy. We got a list here, some of the top UFAs in the league, and personally, I think this is going to be a really good free agency season. There's a lot of big names on this board. Let's just go right into it. Number 1 on the table, Sam Reinhart. Should we go just talk about each guy, or should I just list them off?
Just list them off, and we'll talk about the ones we want to talk about.
So Sam Reinhart's our number 1 free agent, the Habs Culture free agent board. Jake Guentzel, Brandon Montour, Elias Lindholm. Noah Hannafin signed with the Vegas Golden Knights, so we don't need to talk about him. Steven Stamkos, a lot of question marks about him. Jonathan Marchessault, a Quebec native. Matt Duchene, Brett Pesce, Teravainen, Toffoli, and Sean Monahan, some of our guys that are the biggest in this free agency class. I think we just talk about it right away. Sam Reinhart, where do you see him going if he's not re-signing in?
I'm going to be boring here. I think I'm going to be boring. I think I see him back in Florida. I think they're going to make sense. I think they're going to overpay him, but it doesn't matter as long as he's playing with Barkov.
And if you win a Stanley Cup, you deserve that contract,
right? And I think at the end of the day, even though he might be, overproducing, if you want to put it that way, I still think that he brings a lot to the table in terms of his play style and a lot to the table in terms of his leadership and his experience in the league and potentially, like you just mentioned, a cup under his belt. If I'm sure that the Florida Panthers are holding their breath right now and and hoping that they secure this win. But nonetheless, I think that he resigns with the Florida Panthers. I think it makes the most sense. And look, I think that there's going to be teams offering him a good amount of money, but why change your environment when you know what works? And why would you not want to play in Florida realistically when it comes to taxes and when it comes to living in a nice house and not having to worry about the weather all that much like in Montreal? So I think Sam Reinhart will realistically, Bill Zito will go out and re-sign Sam Reinhart. But I don't know for how much. I know it's going to be an overpay, but I don't know for how much. Do you have a guess?
9.5. 9.5
That's
times.
such an over. Like it's. I guess you can't.
How can you argue with a Stanley Cup 57 goal? Was it 57? I think it was 57. 57 goals, and you just have great chemistry with your team. So that's the guy you just got to. Like, if you change something up at this point, you're just screwing your own team over. So it's going to be an overpay, but it's worth it because he produced the season, and Florida's in the finals once again.
But you know what? I don't even. Here's my take on it. I don't even. The money will be a little bit much. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Is he worth that much? The 9.5? Maybe not. But I'm not even going to argue about the money itself. I'm going to argue about the term because realistically, he's going to get 8 years, right?
Most likely
8 years.
It's not like he's old though.
He's not old, but I just feel like he's one of those players that is not. He's not going to be producing like this at 32 years old. Maybe not.
And obviously at the tail end of that contract, it's probably going to suck. But like every 8-year deal that you're signing at 28, 27, it's not good for the end of it, but you're signing for his value now. And that's what it's at. And in 8 years, the Panthers will probably not be as dominant as they are right now. So you got to just lock it in and bank on this window you have.
Yeah, I guess you got to operate under the assumption that you're probably going to try and run it back next year.
For sure. Next
even
3 years.
Even if they do happen to lose this final, which let's assume that they won't.
Yeah.
You're going to have 2 back-to-back finals appearances with presumably 1 cup and the potential to run it back with pretty much the exact same core. So yeah, I see the argument, but from an individual, like if I'm the GM and I'm starting a team and I'm saying, like, I think you're putting your team in a lot of trouble by signing a guy like Reinhart to 9.5 if I was starting a new team. But considering their situation, I think it makes a little bit more sense.
If you're the Chicago Blackhawks GM, if you're the no, I'm not going to say Utah. If you're the San Jose Sharks GM, how much are you offering? Because it's got to be higher than 9.5 if that's what we're assuming the Panthers are offering.
It's a great question. I think you probably offer him. Look, I think you probably offer him 10.
Yeah, is that gonna no, it's not worth it because why would he take that? It's got to be even higher.
But then there's no there's no point in making him an offer.
Exactly. It's that gray zone.
Unless you think that he's a franchise changing guy. But I mean, I think we can both agree that he's not a franchise changing guy.
Bedsy over to Reinhart.
I mean, look, again, some teams need to meet the cap floor. We understand that, but there's levels to doing that,
Are you reaching the cap floor by offering him $20 million for 1 year?
God, imagine. Anyway, nonetheless, I think that's an interesting conversation to have. Like, how much do you give him if you're Chicago or if you're San Jose?
And I think our next guy here we can have the same conversation. Jake Guentzel, where is he going? I'll give that to you. Do you think he's resigning? Do you think he's going somewhere else?
Before I say where he's going, I think that in terms of this list, I'm not saying we put it 1-2 necessarily, but I think he's way better than Reinhart. I think he's way better.
Is he younger?
Reinhart.
I feel like they're like similar age.
They're probably similar in age. Guentzel was drafted a little bit later in terms of round, but I don't know. I mean, you'll pull that up for me as I speak about it a little bit. But I think Guentzel's a lot better than Reinhart. And as a result, do I think he'll get paid more? Probably not. But I don't think Carolina is going to realistically be able to afford him based on where they're going with this team. Do you want to jump in and give me the age difference?
Yeah, Guentzel is 1 year older, actually.
But I still think push comes to shove. If let's say all things being equal, you're offering them, let's say 8 years by $9.5 million to each of them. I'd rather give that money to Guentzel than to Reinhart.
Yeah, maybe the longevity Guentzel's.
But Guentzel's also proven this year and in the years that he's played with Pittsburgh when Crosby's been injured, that he's capable of producing without them. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, we haven't seen a scenario in which Reinhart produces without a guy like Barkov. Just like you haven't seen a situation where Huberdeau's produced without Barkov. And as a result, look what we're seeing right now. Again, Huberdeau's a little bit older, obviously, so it changes things. And Calgary's not a desired place to play at this point in time. But point being, all things being equal, I'm taking Guentzel over Reinhart. Now, where do I think he ends up? It's a great question because I don't know. I don't even have a guess. You have a guess?
I don't want to be First of all, I'm just going to close the book on him returning to Pittsburgh because at this point it doesn't sound like it's happening. Apparently he was pretty frustrated he couldn't get a contract there because he wanted to be there. So I'm going to say no to Pittsburgh. And considering the fact that he's decided to test free agency and not sign with Carolina after that trade was made or even after the playoffs ended, I'm going to say he leaves Carolina and gets his money and goes somewhere, maybe not to a contending team, but a team where he's going to get paid. And if that's 9.5, 10 million, I feel like that's very possible on a bottom feeder team like Chicago, like probably not San Jose, but I don't know. I just picture him going to Chicago for some reason. They need a guy like that, and him and Bedard would absolutely cook.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that statement you made that Guentzel is able to do it alone and probably does have some more value than Sam Reinhart, even though Reinhart just put up 57 goals. Because yes, it's true. Guentzel has been able to play on his own and put up points on his own rather than Reinhart. Okay, he had one good season in Buffalo, really, but Jack Eichel was still there, I think. So it's hard to evaluate, and I think Guentzel does have a lot of value. So I say he leaves Carolina, and I'm going to just say Chicago. Why not?
I like that pick.
He gets overpaid.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not even going to give a prediction because I think it's going to be one of those, I guess, bottom feeder teams that can afford to pay him. And I guess back to the conversation we were having before, like all things being equal, you're saying like, what would San Jose, for example, offer Reinhart to top an offer from Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm starting my franchise in Florida, I'd rather start my franchise with Guentzel than Reinhart. That's all. Like, that's kind of what I was getting at.
That's fair. And I think Florida's already at the advantage in terms of the tax situation.
Yeah.
Whatever San Jose overpays, let's say it's even $1 million. Let's say that he offers, San Jose offers 10.5. You're still losing that California tax.
Anyway,
50% right there. So,
but anyway, I think Chicago's makes a lot of sense. Like, Chicago's going to have to go and do something because they're going to pick in the top 5, like we mentioned in our previous episode. They're going to go pick in the top 5 at number 2. Whoever they draft, you don't want to be that bad for 3 years in a row. They're still going to be a bottom 10 team, but you're going to have to find like Bedard's. You can't waste like even though he's 19 years old. You still don't want to waste these years of Bedard.
No, and you can't stunt his growth either. Right. And I feel like if you're playing him with Tyler Johnson on PB1, that's
his best winger this year by far was Kurashev, but that tells you all you need to know in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know, are they at the cap floor? They cannot be at the cap floor.
I mean, at this point in time, I don't know. Obviously, they reached it for last season.
Yeah, because they signed Nick Foligno for $5 million,
and Perry was overpaid too for a bit.
Seth Jones 9.5, but even what's his name, Tyler Johnson. So they got to pay somebody, and their goalies suck too. So they got to do something
for sure.
Next guy on our list, this is a tough one because I don't think the Panthers can afford him, and that's Brandon Montour. Someone's going to go, is that Ekblad? Is that Montour? Is that somebody else? But they don't have a lot of cap space, and if you want to pull up that exact number, it would shine light on this situation. But Brandon Montour, terrific season 2 years ago. This past year, again, very solid. He came into the season with an injury, but goes to the finals again. Obviously is a key piece to this Florida team. And maybe he takes a bit of a discount because I don't think he's an $8 million D-man. I don't even think he's a $7 million D-man. But I feel like that's the asking price on his end.
You got to compare it too, right? Like we always say that there's the market setting contracts, and I mean, look, we can dismiss the Seth Jones and the Darnell Nurse contracts because realistically, at the end of the day, you can't. If they're getting that much, then McCarr deserves double, right? And Quinn Hughes deserves double. So we can't do that. But I don't see a world where he gets less than $7 million. Don't.
It just doesn't happen in free agency. And I think, what did Hanifin make? He made $8 million, I believe, 8x8.
I think he was in like the high sevens. Yeah.
7.75.
Something like that.
So I feel like that's a
I'm not
pretty
mistaken.
good market setting as well.
And
So,
just to kind of point out too, right now on Cap Friendly, it says that currently they have about 20 million and change in cap space.
yeah, and half of that's got to go to Reinhart.
Right. So and keep in mind, you're looking at their UFAs. Just to read out a few, you've got Anton Lundell's an RFA, but then
There you
you've
go.
got
Gotta sign him.
Senko, who probably won't resign.
I
Or
think
maybe
he will.
he will.
I
But
think he
very,
will.
very cheap,
Yeah.
realistically.
Yeah.
They have Stenlin, Okposo, Lorentz, Lomberg, Nick
All cheap.
Cousins. And then on D, you've got Josh Mahura, RFA. You've got Ekman Larson, UFA, Kulikov, UFA, and Montour. And then you have Stolarz, UFA also. But again,
You can't go
only
out.
goes so far with
You
that.
can't just sign 2 guys. You got to sign a good chunk of those guys, and it adds up eventually. So,
But then again, the conversation is still valid about if you win a cup with Reinhart, just like if you win a cup with Montour. Montour is their best defenseman,
yeah,
in my opinion.
for sure. Well,
And
Forsling too, arguably.
Sure, but he's one of those like underrated guys that like will be, anyway. But Montour's the flashy guy, the power play one guy, the guy that gets done. Like, how do you, if he comes to you and says like, look, like I'll take a bit of a discount, but I really want to stay. We won a cup. We made 2 finals appearances. Like,
so maybe Ekblad's the guy who needs to go. That's the solution.
but
to all
also
of this.
maybe they can, I don't know, maybe some of these guys, because if you win a cup, like maybe, for example, Okposo fills that 4th line role for, vet minimum.
I think that guy's gone. He can't skate anymore.
Right. But my point is that they can probably get a lot of these guys on a really, really big discount.
Yeah,
Like, why would you
yeah.
not want to play in Florida for a discount to potentially win another cup?
For sure.
So, like, I mean,
agree
look,
with you.
keep it at that. I think that there's a potential that he returns to Florida. So if that happens, obviously it gets expensive for Florida if they also go after Reinhart. Now, I'm looking online, so this is not my personal opinion, but I just saw something that said, maybe the Leafs go after him.
Yeah.
Now,
I had a feeling that was the.
well, that's not, I don't know if that's like my opinion. Like, I just saw that somewhere. I think that the Leafs are probably more interested in the guy that they could get for cheaper, but maybe is a little bit more stable, whether that's like a Brett Pesce or whether that's a another D man on the market. But I don't know. Like, that, to me, that would be such a mistake for the Leafs. But
yeah, you need someone who can play defense on their team. Montour, he's a hustler, but not the most offensive defenseman.
But also, sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
did in our list, we don't have Brady Shea there, do we?
No.
Is he? I don't know if he's a UFA or an RFA, but he's definitely something. He's definitely.
I believe.
up-
Well, he's definitely UFA. He's old enough.
right. So in that case, I'm just gonna go check quickly.
He could be a Leafs target
He's-
right there.
That's right. So yeah, so Brady Shea is a UFA. I don't
Yeah.
even know why I said RFA. He's 30 years old. Yeah. So Pesce and Shea again. Like, Carolina is screwed.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're screwed.
Well, there's so many guys, and if we want to get into it, there's no Carolina players other than Guentzel, but we didn't talk about it. Yeah, that's true. Toivo's on this list, but they got so many guys, whether that's Nietzsche, they got to resign, Guentzel, Toivo, Seth Jarvis, they got to get on a deal right now because he is a pending RFA. Pesce, Shea, and then I guess they got to, I think Kochetkov needs a new contract as well. He'll be cheap, but just terrible cap situation. It doesn't help that your GM
Chevrov got $2 mil for the next 3, so
okay,
we're
he
chilling.
signed. But I mean, just this situation with their GM just dipping, saying, "I'm not dealing with this situation. I'm out of here." It's not a great look, and considering they have been very disappointing in these last few years, they just signed Brendan Moore, your favorite coach.
Like, I'm not going to say anything. I just think that I'm not even going to put the blame on Brindamore here. I'm going to put the blame on
The players.
No, I'm going to put the blame on their former GM that just left.
Okay.
Waddell, or was
Yeah.
he?
Yeah.
Like, I just think at the end of the day, I mean, like, I'm not saying that he set them up for failure, because he far from did that. I think that they had a really good roster, but now you have, like, you went out, you didn't trade a whole lot for Guentzel in the first place. You gave up, a few B-tier prospects, a few picks. Like, I think you got him at a very, very good price.
For sure.
But now what? Now you're going to have to pay the price to re-sign him. And realistically, they are going to regret it if they happen to trade Nate just because they can't re-sign him realistically,
And
but I actually, sorry,
go
before
ahead.
you speak, question.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing if you're the Carolina Hurricanes and it's basically either you re-sign Aho as a UFA or you re-sign Marty Necas as an RFA. And let's say you can only sign one.
Aho or Necas?
Correct. Not Aho.
Guentzel?
Sorry, Guentzel. Why did I say Aho?
Okay. Guentzel
Necas or
or
Guentzel?
Necas? I'm going to give you a straight up answer. If I'm GM, I'm going with Necas. 5 years younger, probably cheaper deal. Why wouldn't I want to sign Necas? They've never played him in the right position, and he's just never been used to his full potential. Last year, he had like 75 points when he was actually used on the first power play.
Okay, but let me backtrack on that then.
Yeah.
What if his situation, again, this is all speculative, but what if his situation stays the same in terms of they pay him, let's just say just north of 7 million or something.
Sure.
But then again, he's like,
not worth it.
What are you doing?
You have to trade him. And the only solution to this problem is if they want to get all those guys back, like Toivo and one of those D-men, you got to trade Necas for a guy who's on like an entry-level deal or something. It also doesn't help that you have Kokaniemi for another 7 years at 5 million, 4 million. So a lot of bad decisions. And I think trading Necas for a guy who's like, if we're going to say he goes to Montreal, then you got to think a guy like Owen Beck goes the other way, who's able to step into that lineup. A guy like Jordan Harris, cheap deal. And
would you move Josh Roy for him?
I would.
Like,
obviously it wouldn't be straight up, and you got to add something in there. But if you throw in a first round pick, one of those Winnipeg or Calgary picks, that's a deal that the Habs should easily do. Fits into their age range. And Josh Roy, great player. I think he's going to be a very good player. But Carolina is cap tight, and they need to pick up a guy who's not making any money in order to continue having success.
For sure. And I'm just going to take a minute here, guys, to shout out our sponsors at DraftKings.
The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more, don't miss out as the Stanley Cup playoffs wind down. We're just about a week and a bit from crowning a Stanley Cup champion between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers, and it's your chance now to be able to bet on these games and choose some of your favorite props and lines from these two teams. And if you are new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you just bet $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Blue Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved.
Okay, Liam, so kick us off with the next UFA we've got on the board.
Next one on the board here is the Vancouver's very own Elias Lindholm. A lot of speculation that Vancouver is looking to re-sign him, but they've also mentioned, all speculation, that they're ready to offer a significant deal to Jake Guentzel. Significant? Is that 9.5? Is that 10? Is that 8.5? I don't know. But
I don't get that, though. I don't get why you didn't just go after him and
at
trade
the
for
deadline.
him
Yeah.
and then make things so much easier for yourself and avoid, like, the Lindholm acquisition. You can say whatever you want. He showed up a few times in the playoffs. Regular season, he was a ghost for the back end. Like,
yeah,
he was a disappointment.
He was. And apparently he was injured. But again, that's besides the fact he was supposed to be that power play one, line one guy and was playing third line. So not a good look for them. Apparently Jake Guentzel wants to sign with an American team. He's an American guy. But I don't know what a significant contract means. Because significant to me is like 10.5, 11. He's worth 9.5. So you got to be at least $1 million higher, right? But Vancouver's got a lot of choice to make. We'll get back to Elias Lindholm. If they don't get Guentzel, I think Lindholm will re-sign. And I think they're going to get him at a pretty good deal because he was so bad at the end of the season there. I think probably like 7.
Probably could. But then again, you look back to the fact that apparently he had declined an offer originally at the beginning of the year from Calgary. And then I think that he declined another offer from Vancouver. Again, I saw that somewhere. Don't know if it's 100% true. But again, at what point do you say, hey, man, like, I don't think you're like as good as you think you are. And as a result, I think a great landing spot for him would be the Boston Bruins.
I just want to let you in. Live report right now. Filip Hronek signs 8 years, $7.25 million with the Canucks. So there goes your cap space right there. That's
Interesting.
That's insane.
And again, we look back on the Montour deal. Is he a better defenseman than, like, he's probably not better defensively than Hronek is, but is he going to be worth more in free agency? Probably, right?
Yeah, that's actually a position setting contract or whatever you want to call it. 7.25 for a guy who had 5 points in the last like 30 games is wild.
He had a great start to the season.
Amazing start.
And he had a really good back end in Detroit, I think, before he was traded.
Before he was traded. But again, like he had 1 point in the playoffs. 1 point. And he was supposed to be that guy. He was on power play 1 at one point. So I don't know about that.
I mean, from an intangible perspective, well, maybe not intangible. Some of the intangibles, but the less important ones.
Yeah.
I think it was really important for him to be there, for Quinn Hughes to be as good as he is. But again, does that chalk up to $7.25 million?
I
and
always
8 years too. Like,
yeah, it's long, but I always think he's old, but he was 26. He's 26. Right. He was an RFA.
Right.
So
he'll be 34 when his deal expires, and like for a defenseman, I feel like that's very fair.
Yeah, 34. Yeah, exactly. That's fair. That's definitely fair, but expensive. Definitely expensive, and I think he's definitely a solid defenseman. It's just 7.25 seems like a lot, and I think now Montour is going to be asking for more than that.
Easily,
you got to think.
Easily.
Doesn't help the Panthers situation.
But I was saying Boston before for Lindholm.
Yeah, Boston for Lindholm. Again, that works.
Like, it works.
They need a center.
And at the end of the day, I mean, look, like I think their lack of firepower was showing. I mean, they beat the Leafs, so take that for what you want. But like you saw against Florida, and Florida might be the best team in hockey, right? They're going to name future Stanley Cup champion here, but nonetheless, like, I mean, they were lacking that firepower, and
even against the Leafs,
right? It was very close matchups, like not like and when they didn't have Pasternak scoring or Marchand was injured, they were like scrambling to get like DeBrusque going, so, and Zaka and company. So
from game like 4 to 7, they were scoring like 2 goals a game, maybe. So yeah, Lindholm would fit really well in the middle of Pasta and Marchand. Be a great add to that team. Also, he is a great defensive forward as well. So
yeah,
he'll be a big fish, but I don't think he's worth what I feel like his name is worth more than his actual
at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, that one season that he played with, it was Lindholm, Gaudreau, and Tkachuk, like as a line. I mean, like it's hard to go, and that was. I think Tkachuk is
he was the one.
He's the guy.
Yeah, like Gaudreau had an insane season, but
to be completely honest with you, looking back at that, I would have said that he was maybe the second or third fiddle.
Yeah, he was. Everyone thought he was just the guy tagging along, but clearly it's not the case. He's able to do it. He doesn't even play with Barkov on the same line.
He dominates the game in a different way,
for sure. And probably the toughest guy to play against in the NHL as a forward. So the next guy on this list. First, I'm just going to agree with you. I like Boston as a situation for Lindholm. But next guy on this list, Steven Stamkos. There's a lot of talk about him, and I think going back to Tampa is the realistic situation. But I really wouldn't put it out of the picture if he decides to go to another team. And apparently he wants to stay in the state of Florida. Yeah. So cheap deal to the Panthers after a Stanley Cup.
Don't even like joke about that, because honestly, like they might become some sort of dynasty over there.
Your Tampa 2.0. We're going to 3 straight finals. So I like that Stamkos is opening his options. He's going to test free agency, I believe. It's actually crazy that it's been 8 years since he signed that deal. Mm-hmm. Same day PK Subban got traded.
Right.
But realistically, I'm going to say he stays in Tampa for the price he deserves, whether that's 7 or 8. Like, he's still putting up a great amount of points, and Tampa is still a competitive team. If you lose him, you're not as good as you were.
But, and I guess like like to add on to that, I mean, how can you, I know like you gotta move on and sometimes bite the bullet and, just make some business decisions, because at the end of the day, it is a business.
Yeah.
But Steven Stamkos, like you look at those 4 or 5 guys on that team, starting in nets with Vasilevsky, building up from Hedman, and then you got Stamkos, Point, Kucherov. Those 5 guys. That's your core. And I think as long as they're playing hockey and as long as they're playing together, Brisebois got to do everything in his power to make sure that they stay together, even if it means taking a few sacrifices. Like that's the way that I see it about Crosby or Ovechkin. Exactly. Like as long as Crosby's playing, the pen should be competitive.
Mhm.
As long as Ovi's playing, and when I say competitive, I mean trying to win. Doesn't mean they'll be successful at doing
Yeah.
so.
But it's not like points young. Kucherov's still relatively like in his
Kucherov's
prime.
145 points.
There you go. Stamkos had 98 points 2 years ago, or whatever, 101, whatever it was.
How it's like, I feel like if, again, obviously it's easy for me to say but if I were Stamkos in this situation, you've made your money in your career.
Yeah.
I would pull a Pavelski type deal.
There you go. Why not? Like, do you want to win the cup or no? I know you won 2 already.
How much more flexible they would be in terms of signing another free agent or bringing in, like, they could have been they were in talks for getting Hanifin at the deadline.
Yep.
Imagine bringing a guy like Hanifin in the offseason to bolster Sergachev and Hedman. Like,
they pick up McDonough, which was a good ad, but they're screwing themselves over with this cap thing, because you trade for Jeannot, you trade a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and your whole roster for a guy who's scratched in the
first
playoffs.
time that type of deal for them didn't work out.
Yeah, it's true. It was a bad trade, and Brisebois has a very good track record with those trades. But you go out and you have to make those minor moves and get a guy like Duclair. Look, I'm not against Duclair. I think he's a good player, and he did play well in the playoffs, but that's not going to boost you to that next level. Matt Dumba, too. So I think you got to get him on a team-friendly deal, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion and their own asking price, and Stamkos definitely deserves an $8 million deal for the next 3 years or whatever he's asking for. But realistically, you got to be a team guy, and he's the captain. He's got to he's got to lead by example. And if you want your team to win, you gotta bite the bullet and get that money in bonuses or something, because I really don't think it's hard to navigate that cap space.
I agree. So I think realistically speaking, he'll end up back in Tampa.
Yep.
There's rumors about potentially Detroit. Maybe that's to play under Yzerman. I don't know if that has any connection whatsoever. But anyway, like, at the end of the day, people are also saying Montreal probably most like to play with St. Louis. I don't know. I really don't.
That would be cool.
I would doubt it.
Yeah,
like I would have. It's gonna be Tampa.
Yeah,
We'll leave it at that.
You mentioned Detroit, and this guy's not on the list, but Patty Kane apparently not re-signing with Detroit, and I don't know what that. He's not going to Chicago either. I think Chicago closed that door.
Yeah,
so this guy's free as a fish, and he's he put up like point per game. The guy's not done yet. He's 35, 36, something like that. I think he's still got something left in the tank, and was a big reason why that Red Wing team was so good. I don't know why they don't want to re-sign him. But Patrick Kane, any ideas where he's going to go?
I've heard something I've seen some things about potentially New Jersey, but I don't even like it for New Jersey. Like, I think that's like more, like how when we look back at some of the runs, whether it was the Panthers when they went out and got, like, in that year where they got Sherratt and Giroux, and then fast forward to, or maybe same year when the Rangers went out and got Senko and Kane. Like, I just think it's more of like a name move than anything. Like, I think Kane is still playing at an elite level, will get the points, he'll be there. But are you really going to go out and throw money at a guy and say, hey, we fixed our problem, our scoring problem, or no, he's not that guy. You got to go make other moves first. And then he might be that perfect, fringe second line guy that's going to be skilled and be on the power. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not.
I get what you're saying, but I think honestly, New Jersey could make sense considering they had signed Toffoli last year or traded for him and then got rid of him at the deadline. So maybe he slots into that spot because they are missing. Like, I know they have Holtz, but he's clearly not developing the way they want.
And he's also a trade target, in my opinion. Like,
for sure, there's a lot of young guys who are trade targets like that in that age range. But I don't know, maybe Kane can fit that role. I just want to throw him in there because
he's definitely interesting.
Name value, and he only signed for $3 million with Detroit, I believe. It was 1 year, $3 million.
Interesting.
So he would definitely be a good ad for any team trying to make imagine he goes to Boston and is just playing on that second line.
I think Kane's the type of guy that you could, like, we could say, imagine him playing here, because he's just that good. Like, he's that skilled and he has that swagger. Like, that's just Patty Kane for you.
For sure.
A couple other guys, or maybe one other guy, or maybe two more.
Yeah.
Johnny Marchessault. Thoughts?
Gotta be. Did he not sign yet? I
don't think so.
Okay, well, I think it's Vegas 100%. A lot of these guys sound like they're going to re-sign. I'm sure there's going to be a couple that go somewhere else, but Marchessault, key piece of Vegas, was they've been there from the start. their top goal scorer. He almost had 50 this year. I think he had 40 something. So I think Marchessault re-signs. There's no reason why they shouldn't re-sign him. I know they aren't the most loyal team in terms of holding on to their key players, but Marchessault's their guy. Conn Smythe winner. Got to hold on to him.
Look, I agree with you to a certain extent, but I also hate the fact that he's 33, and I hate the fact that, like, I think it makes the most sense to go back to Vegas for him and for the franchise, because he's that type of guy that's going to go out there. He's going to probably get in the ballpark, maybe from another team, get offered like $7 million or something, maybe even more potentially. And then all of a sudden, he's like the third or fourth best player on your team at 33 years old. And like, what does he really bring to the table in a system that he's not familiar with? Like, I know that might be far-fetched. Like, I know he was in Florida, had a really good season there, and then he's been in Vegas the rest of his career. Like, I know he was in Tampa for like a minute also, but not a minute, like literally a minute,
was,
like
yeah.
nothing.
It was
But
nothing.
my point is that, like, if you're a team like, trying to think, like if you're a team like Boston, for example, I think going out and getting a guy like Marchessault is just such a mistake.
Yeah, signing a 33-year-old to a long-term, it won't be a long-term deal, but it'll probably be like 3-4 years, and it'll probably be like 3 years, and he'll get paid $7 million, then re-sign again for a cheap deal. But Marchessault is a key piece of that team, and you can't, I can't envision him going somewhere else. But a guy who I do think is going to be moving around, Matt Duchene. Dallas is just so many great players coming up, whether that's Stankoven, Maverick Bourque, Wyatt Johnson. They're all taking over this top six, along with Rupe, Robertson, and then there's more guys there. I can't even think. Marchment. Duchene he's going to ask for too much money. Dallas can't afford it.
Don't forget about Wyatt.
Yeah, I said Wyatt
Oh,
Johnson. I did say he's the best. He's the
he's
best out
the
of
guy.
all of them. He's the face right now. But yeah, Duchene, like, honestly would be a great pickup for any team. It's crazy that he's signed for $3 million, and it's crazy that he got bought out because he's actually a good player, and I think any team that gets him will be pretty lucky because he's going to sign for a cheap deal again.
So my big question to you here for Duchene is how much?
I say 5.
Okay. For how many years? Like 1 or 2?
I think he wants a longer deal, like to finish his career with.
Right.
So 3-4 maybe.
So question, if you're the Canadiens, you lost Monahan at the deadline, makes sense, right? Like you moved him for the right price, makes sense.
Yeah.
You kind of want to bring in another, like, look, you have Dvorak who's going to, and now we're talking a little bit of Habs, which is, I feel like the Habs don't exist right now.
They don't exist in free agency.
No, but they don't exist like in the playoffs right now, which sucks, and you almost forget that they exist as a team, at least in my mind. But nonetheless, you have your Suzuki, presumably Doc, healthy, knock on every piece of wood that exists.
Yeah, please.
Dvorak, Evans. Like, I'm looking down the middle right now. Am I missing anyone down the middle? Like I know there's versatile guys, but for the most part, I've got that.
That's
covered.
what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Colin White.
Right. Okay. Let's forget about that. Anyway, point being, if you're Montreal, you want to be more competitive this year. You want to bring in a guy. If you're the Canadiens, would you offer him a contract? And if your answer is no, then we'll leave it at that. But if it's yes, how much would you offer him?
I'm gonna say no. I just don't think it makes sense for the Canadiens. I think he wants to go to a contender. Like, why would he want to sign with the Canadiens? It just doesn't make sense in my opinion. I still think if the Habs offered him $5 million, I'd be happy if he took that because he's a good piece to have on any team. It's just the Habs they're not in that position to be going out and getting these guys. Maybe if they're in a playoff spot at the deadline, you go out and trade for a guy like that. But to sign him, I don't think it's the right move. And I bet Kent Hughes and Gordon are thinking the same thing. Like,
but see, then my question is, then, like, what's the value of re-signing Monahan? Like, there's value in it for the Canadiens.
Yeah.
But what's the mindset for Monahan, for example, to come back to Montreal?
Yeah. Well, presumably it'd probably be cheaper, and he's been there before, so you have that chemistry already. And yes, that vet presence is huge, and I see what you mean with Duchene there. I just think the pre-existing chemistry and all the guys seem to love Sean Monahan. I don't know if he's going to come back. We don't have that answer, but if I'm Ken Hughes, I'd rather bring in Monahan than Duchene for a cheaper price.
Right. I wonder if Monahan is even being considered, but
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to Winnipeg, but I don't know.
Or somewhere else. Like, again, a Boston, perfect fit where they need the center. It's funny because I feel like for the last 3 years we've said, okay, this guy could go to Boston. They need a center.
Yeah.
Oh, Krejci's leaving. Bergeron's leaving. They need a center.
They just never done it. Like, Hurdle seemed like a perfect spot for Boston too, and Vegas goes and gets him.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway,
anyways, we covered a lot of these free agents, and there's a few more on this list, but we covered those top ones, and it's going to be an exciting free agency period. A lot of these guys are probably going to re-sign, but don't be surprised if Jay Guentzel, Lindholm, and Matt Duchene go somewhere else, as well as Montour.
yeah, and next episode we'll chat about potential trade targets for the Canadiens as they probably look to make another similar trade to the New Hook or to the Dock, where they want to get a player that slots into that timeline. So we have names. We're gonna come up with some potential trades, and we're gonna talk about that next episode. So
yeah, let's hope there's some movement at the draft.
Yeah, which is next week.
In 2 weeks.
In a week and a half.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in as per usual, and we'll see you next week.